Myles Garrett's quiet show of support for Shedeur Sanders said more than any front office statement could. While the Cleveland Browns leadership speaks in cautious tones about development, the locker room tells a different story. One of players growing impatient with the politics of delay. The tension between the coaching staff and management has become impossible to ignore. Insiders described fractured relationships and hushed frustration over a quarterback who's shown more maturity than the system meant to shape him. The divide isn't just about playing time, it's about trust. That's what makes this moment pivotal.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Sanders' professionalism is rewriting the narrative from within, forcing a dysfunctional franchise to confront what it's been avoiding: accountability. Analysts like Garrett Bush and Mary Kay Cabot aren't amplifying gossip. They're spotlighting the contradiction between talent and fear. Cleveland's leaders can no longer hide behind cliches about patience or timing. Each day, they keep Sanders sidelined. They're not developing him. They're exposing themselves. And sooner or later, the player they tried to contain will become the one they can no longer control. The NFL world is on fire right now, and not because of a last-minute touchdown or a miracle comeback. No, this time, it's the Cleveland Browns who've managed to ignite a firestorm. And the spark? Shedeur Sanders. Or more specifically, what the Browns are doing or not doing with him. Let's get straight to it. Respected NFL insiders are calling out the Browns for lying about Sanders. Not exaggerating. Not slightly misleading. Lying. About his readiness. About their so-called development plan. About everything from top to bottom in how they're handling a quarterback who, by all accounts, should be getting a shot now. What's unfolding isn't just a misstep, it's a full-blown scandal, with Garrett Bush leading the charge, putting the Browns' front office and coaching staff directly in the crosshairs. And he's not alone. The criticism is stacking up, louder and sharper, with every passing week Sanders spends on the sideline. Because the more people talk, the more obvious it becomes. The Browns aren't delaying his debut for football reasons. They're doing it to protect themselves. And that's the crux of the problem. Shedeur Sanders isn't struggling. He's not behind schedule. He's not some raw talent who needs more time in the system. In fact, insiders and analysts, Mary Kay Cabot among them, have been crystal clear. Sanders is showing elite-level mechanics, poise under pressure, accuracy, and a commanding presence that you just don't see from typical rookies. And he's not just impressing on tape. He's winning over veterans in the locker room. Players like Myles Garrett aren't just supportive, they're backing Sanders publicly. And let's be real, that doesn't happen unless a guy is really earning respect behind closed doors. That kind of support doesn't come from hype. It comes from watching someone outwork everyone in the room and deliver under pressure. So if the team leaders are ready to follow him, and the analysts are saying he's ready to lead, what's the holdup? The Browns' official line has been the same recycled cliche: we're waiting for the right moment. But that phrase, the right moment, has become a punchline, a smokescreen. Because what that actually means, based on what experts are seeing, is that the organization is afraid of change, afraid of letting go of the narrative they've worked so hard to maintain, afraid of what it would mean to admit that maybe, just maybe, they've been holding back the guy who could turn this franchise around. And the fans are watching it all unfold, eyes wide open. They're not stupid. They can see that this isn't about protecting Shedeur. It's about protecting fragile egos and bad decisions. And it's not like this is a team with a strong, winning culture that's too stable to shake up. The Browns have nothing to lose by starting him, and everything to gain. Because let's not forget, this team isn't humming. They're not leading their division. They're not riding high on a veteran quarterback lighting up the league. They're trying to survive. And instead of leaning into a rising star with undeniable talent, they're doubling down on delay tactics, media manipulation, and false narratives. That's where the chaos comes in. Behind the scenes, the Browns' football culture is unraveling. You've got internal conflict between the coaching staff, the front office, and the players. Reports of fractured relationships are starting to leak. There's a clear divide between those who want to push forward and those who want to keep spinning their wheels. And while all of that plays out, Sanders stays quiet, focused, professional. He's not speaking out. He's not fueling the media cycle. He's just showing up, staying prepared, and letting his work speak louder than anything else. That kind of discipline? It's rare. That kind of maturity? It's what you want in a franchise QB. And still, the Browns won't budge. Why? Because giving Shedeur the reins means reshaping the team's identity, and the people in charge aren't ready to do that. They've spent years selling this slow-burn approach to growth. But what's really been happening is a culture of dysfunction where decisions are made not on merit, but on who's in control. And Sanders threatens that control. He's not just a quarterback. He's a threat to the system. Because if he steps on that field and wins, it proves that the current leadership has been wrong all along. It puts pressure on coaches. It exposes front office hesitation. And most importantly, it takes the power out of their hands and puts it in his. And they don't want that. So instead, they craft a narrative. Strategic leaks to the media. Carefully worded quotes. A storyline of development that sounds noble, but really masks fear. It's not patience. It's not planning. It's insecurity. And now, with every week that passes, the cracks are getting harder to ignore. You've got insiders pointing out the hypocrisy in public statements. You've got teammates quietly pushing back. You've got analysts calling out contradictions in how Sanders is being handled versus how others with less talent have been fast-tracked. It's not just suspicious, it's blatantly dysfunctional. And that dysfunction? It's eating away at the team's potential. Every day Sanders isn't starting is a day this franchise drifts further from real progress. The Browns aren't developing a quarterback, they're suppressing one. And that's going to have consequences. Because locker room trust doesn't survive this kind of thing. Players aren't stupid. They know when the best guy isn't being put on the field. And when that happens, when merit takes a back seat to politics, it breaks the culture from the inside out. The Browns are gambling, not on wins or losses, but on whether they can keep this under control long enough to not blow it up from within. But it's already slipping. The media is louder. The fans are restless. And Shedeur? He's still just doing the work, which makes this even harder to watch. Because he's not flailing. He's not creating drama. He's doing exactly what they said they wanted. He's preparing. He's leading. He's staying grounded. And somehow, that's not enough. Because the truth is, they don't want a prepared quarterback. They want a controllable one. And Sanders doesn't fit that mold. He's confident, composed, respected. And that kind of presence doesn't follow the script, it rewrites it. And Cleveland isn't ready for the rewrite. But the thing is, it's coming whether they like it or not. This isn't just a missed opportunity. It's an inevitable reckoning. At some point, the pressure will break the delay tactics. And when it does, when Sanders finally gets a shot, it's going to expose the months of misdirection and manipulation for what they were, fear. So the Browns have a choice. Start the future now, or keep stalling and let the whole thing collapse under its own weight. And if you're still holding out hope that they'll do the right thing, you're not alone. Drop your thoughts below. How long can the Browns keep running from the obvious? Like this, if you're tired of watching talent get wasted, share it with someone who's been tracking this disaster. And hit subscribe, because if this saga is any indication, the next chapter's coming fast. And it's not going to be pretty. Right now, the Cleveland Browns aren't just mismanaging a quarterback. They're setting the stage for a full-blown franchise collapse. And the worst part? It's all self-inflicted. Let's call it what it is. Shedeur Sanders is ready. Fully ready. Not getting there. Not in progress. Not needs more seasoning. No, he's ready to start. Analysts have said it. His mechanics prove it. His mental poise backs it up. His command in practice, his film room discipline, the quiet leadership he brings, all of it screams NFL starter. And yet he sits. Why? Because the Cleveland Browns, a team already infamous for decades of dysfunction, would rather protect the illusion of control than admit they're standing in their own way. They've chosen to play a narrative game instead of playing football. And now, As media figures and players start speaking out, that house of cards is shaking violently. When Garrett Bush called them out publicly, it wasn't just about bad coaching or a difference in opinion. It was about lies. Deliberate, strategic misdirection from the team's leadership, shaping public perception through carefully planted narratives, hiding behind the word development as a way to justify something much uglier. Fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of giving up control. Fear of the unknown. But that fear is now costing them more than just games. It's costing them credibility. This is no longer a quiet internal disagreement. This is a very public unraveling of trust between players and management, between fans and the front office, and most critically, between the Browns and the truth. Because the truth is out. The players know it. The media knows it. The fans definitely know it. And the longer the team tries to deny what's clearly happening, the deeper the hole gets. Let's talk about what that denial looks like. It looks like quotes from leadership filled with vague corporate language. We're taking it week by week. He's progressing well. We're not ready to make any announcements. It sounds professional, but it means nothing. It's the same script we've heard a dozen times before from franchises afraid to admit they're lost. It looks like selective leaks to friendly reporters, pushing the idea that Shedeur isn't quite there yet, despite all evidence to the contrary. It looks like deflecting blame onto external pressures, media, fans, expectations, while refusing to acknowledge that the pressure is internal. It's been internal from a start. Because this isn't about Sanders being unprepared. This is about Sanders being too ready. Ready in a way that threatens the fragile political ecosystem inside the Browns organization. Ready in a way that puts people's jobs at risk. Ready in a way that challenges the choices made by people who don't want to be challenged. You can sense the anxiety every time his name is brought up in a press conference. The stiff posture. The forced smiles. The dodged questions. It's not about easing a young player in. It's about holding him back. And every day they continue to do it. The gap between what they say and what's actually true gets wider. This whole situation reveals something deeper. The Browns are less afraid of losing games than they are of losing control of the narrative. They've built a system where progress has to happen on their terms, on their timeline, through their lens. So when someone like Sanders comes along, someone whose talent, professionalism, and leadership are so overwhelming they break the script, it creates panic. And the response to that panic? Deny, delay, and deflect. And what's being lost in the process? Time, development, momentum, culture. Because whether they like it or not, every week Sanders sends a message to the locker room. A message that says, talent isn't enough. Work ethic isn't enough. Respect from teammates isn't enough. What matters most is not rocking the boat. And that's a cancer for any team. Because players aren't dumb. They see what's happening. They see a guy who has the tools, the drive, and the respect, but isn't getting the shot. And they start to wonder, what else are we doing wrong? What else is being hidden behind press releases and slogans? How are we supposed to trust this process when it's so obviously broken? This is how locker rooms fall apart. Not with blow-ups, not with screaming matches, but with silent doubt, with players pulling away from leadership, with effort that's just a little less urgent, with conversations behind closed doors that begin with what are we even doing? The Browns are walking into that territory, and fast. And on the outside, the fans are over it. This isn't year one of a rebuild. It's not some long-term experiment. This is a team that has drafted, fired, restructured, rebranded, and reset more times than anyone can count. The excuses are gone. The patience is gone. The belief? It's hanging on by a thread. And Shedeur Sanders has become the symbol of everything that's wrong and everything that could be right. Because he represents a different path. One based on merit, on actual performance, on embracing change instead of fearing it. And that's exactly what this team says it wants, but clearly isn't ready to live out. The fact that he's still not starting, even as insiders detail his preparation, his leadership, his precision. It's not just frustrating. It's insulting. It's an insult to the fans, to the players, and to Shedeur himself, who's done everything you could possibly ask of a young quarterback coming into a messy franchise. He's done the work. He's earned the trust. He's kept his head down. And he's stayed professional, even while chaos swirls around him. And yet, week after week, game after game, he watches from the sideline while the franchise trips over its own fear. But here's the thing about talent like this. You can't contain it forever. At some point, something breaks. Either the losing becomes too much, or the veterans speak louder, or the media pressure reaches a fever pitch, or Sanders finally forces the issue by being so obviously ready that to deny him becomes laughable. And that moment is coming. The Browns are trying to stop the inevitable, but all they're doing is postponing it, while hurting themselves in the process. Because when that moment arrives and Sanders does take the field, everything they've tried to hide will be out in the open. The lies, the manipulation, the wasted time. And the fans? They'll remember. Because this isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a moment of reckoning. A moment that will define how the Browns are remembered during this era. Will they be the team that finally got it right? That embraced change, trusted their players, and evolved? Or will they be the team that let dysfunction win again? That's the choice they're making. Right now. Every single week that Sanders doesn't play, they're choosing the latter. And that's why this isn't just a story, it's a warning. Not just to Cleveland, but to every organization that thinks they can outmaneuver talent with spin. You can't. Not for long. Eventually, the game catches up. And when it does, there's nowhere left to hide. It's not even about whether Shedeur Sanders is ready. That debate is over. The numbers, the mechanics, the leadership traits, they've all been laid out. The support from veterans like Myles Garrett isn't just polite endorsement. It's earned confidence. This isn't a case of we think he might be the guy. This is, he is the guy, and the Browns are too afraid to let him prove it. So now, the conversation has shifted. It's no longer about Sanders. It's about Cleveland. What does this franchise want to be? Because right now, it looks like they're more comfortable maintaining the illusion of stability than they are with embracing actual progress. And it's not subtle anymore. The cracks are on full display, and everyone's watching them widen. It's in the interviews where coaches dodge the question. It's in the post-game pressers where leaders give robotic non-answers. It's in the players' body language, the quiet frustration. It's in the way every game is shadowed by the unspoken reality. The best quarterback on the roster is still standing on the sidelines, helmet on, fully prepped, while the front office spins a narrative that no one's buying. You know it's bad when the media starts showing more clarity than the organization itself. Garrett Bush didn't mince words. He flat out accused the Browns of lying, not being cautious, not sticking to the plan. Straight up lying. That kind of public call-out doesn't happen unless something is seriously wrong. And let's be real, Garrett Bush isn't exactly the only voice calling this out. Across the board, NFL insiders and commentators are pointing to one thing: the disconnect between what the Browns are saying and what everyone else is seeing. They say Shedeur needs time? Then why are people close to the team calling him one of the most poised young QBs they've ever seen? They say they're waiting for the right moment? Then why does that moment somehow never arrive, no matter how much chaos unfolds around the starting lineup? They say they're protecting him? From what success? Because that's what this looks like now. A deliberate stall to prevent disruption to a fragile hierarchy. Shedeur Sanders is too good, too mature, and too ready. And that makes him a problem for the people who built this team around a different story. And here's what really stings. The Browns aren't just slowing down his progress. They're slowing down the entire team's. Every week that Sanders doesn't start is a week of missed chemistry, missed momentum, missed trust building. He's not learning anymore by standing there with a clipboard. He's outgrown that phase. He's ready to take command. He's earned it. And the locker room knows it. That kind of delay eats away at the foundation. Trust between players and leadership isn't built on slogans. It's built on actions. And right now, the Browns' actions are saying loud and clear, it doesn't matter how ready you are. It only matters if it fits our comfort zone. That's a message that breaks locker rooms. Quietly, slowly, but undeniably. We've seen it happen before. Franchises with raw talent, incredible potential, and all the tools to turn the corner, only to implode under the weight of their own fear. That's what this is. Not indecision, not caution. Fear. Fear of change. Fear of being wrong. Fear of losing control of the narrative. And that fear is what defines dysfunctional organizations. Not just the bad ones, the confused ones. The teams that can't decide if they want to evolve or just pretend they are. Cleveland has been in that no man's land for too long. And now, they've got a player who could force them to choose. Shedeur Sanders represents everything the Browns claim to be building toward. A composed, intelligent, work-first quarterback with natural leadership and elite mechanics. He's exactly what they say they're developing, and yet they're holding him back. Why? Because letting him lead means letting go of the past, letting go of older investments, letting go of decisions that didn't pan out, letting go of narratives they've spent seasons constructing. And instead of just admitting they were wrong, they're dragging it out, week by week, delay by delay, excuse by excuse. And fans? They're not buying it anymore. That leash is gone. They're not showing up for slogans. They're showing up to watch the most talented guy on the field actually play. And they're getting sick of seeing him benched for reasons that have nothing to do with football. Cleveland has been a rebuilding team for years. And yet, every time they get close to something real, they panic. They smother their own momentum. They pretend they're playing chess, when really, they're just afraid to make a move. But time is running out. Eventually, the locker room won't just whisper. The players will speak louder. The fans will get angrier. The media will get more aggressive. And the Browns will be forced into the one thing they've been avoiding this whole time: accountability. Because if they keep holding Shedeur back, and the season slips, and the story cracks wide open, then every decision, every delay, every excuse is going to come back to haunt them. And no narrative will save them from that. They're not just delaying a quarterback's rise. They're risking the very culture they claim to be rebuilding. And if they lose that, it won't matter how much talent they have. The damage will already be done. It's time. Not because of pressure. Not because of hype. Because Shedeur Sanders has earned it. Period. He's done the work. Earned the trust. Proved his readiness. And now all eyes are on Cleveland. Waiting. Watching. Wondering just how long this franchise is going to keep getting in its own way. So what do you think? Is this sabotage or just fear? Is Cleveland protecting Sanders or protecting themselves? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're over the delays and done with the excuses. Share this with anyone still trying to defend the Browns strategy. And hit subscribe, because with Cleveland, this isn't the end of the story. It might just be the beginning of the unraveling.